So now I'm going to talk about something that's actually about Venice.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
The quintessential Venice. The thing that when you think of Venice, you think of...
Venetian
marijuana.
blinds.
The canals.
Oh, the canals are there. Let's not forget.
So the canals were the centerpiece of Kinney's vision of Venice of America. They were originally being dug by men and mules, but the progress was going too slow. So Kinney, he was afraid, again, he wanted everything to be open by July 4th. Mm-hmm. So he brought in steam-powered equipment to speed up the process. There were originally 16 miles of canals that were all filled with seawater. The system was that the canals, they all connected to a channel that led into the ocean. So as the tides rose and fell, the water would be flushed in and out, and they would be cleaned on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. The silt buildups that would sometimes jam the tide gates, though, guess what they cleared them with?
What?
Dynamite. It was just everywhere.
Lying around.
Just growing
there was a
on
dynamite
trees.
tree.
So the bridges that were spanning the canals, they were designed by Felix Piano, who is an Italian architect that designed a bunch of other buildings around LA also, to test the strength of the bridges and to also kill two birds with one stone and have a publicity stunt for one of the local attractions. Kinney had the Sells Brothers Circus walk their biggest elephants across the bridges to see if they would collapse and watch the elephants drown, but none of them did. But they never forgot. There were actual gondola rides through the extensive canal system. Yeah. Some of the gondoliers were actually flown in from Venice, Italy, and they would sing to you in Italian as you were on them. Mm-hmm. People who lived on the water, they could get to their house by boat or canoe. The largest canal was the Grand Canal, but there were a lot of smaller ones with names like the Venice Canal, the Aldebaran, and the Altair. There were a combined 7 districts, but the hub of it all was the Central Lagoon, which is now the intersection of Main and Venice Circle. And that's where they had the amphitheater. It was the center of all their celebrations, all the festivities. The canals, they were just a generally nice place to just go out on a boat and relax. Unfortunately, the canals were built with zero regard for the future in mind. They were a sentimental throwback to a different time, and they were actually a statement of an opposition to progress, which Venice has always been about. They've always been counterculture from the beginning.
From the beginning.
They were meant as an alternative way for people to get around that was more convenient than walking, but an even more convenient alternative started to take over not long after they were built, which was cars.
I thought you were going to say flying policemen.
There was only one.
Cars can't go on canals. The words start the same way, though.
What started out as a fun novelty by the 20s had become an anachronistic and a nuisance to people trying to drive their new cars into the area. So the streets were disconnected by miles of canals. There was nowhere to park, which is still a problem. I'll say it again. Businesses wanted to open up the city to the automobile. So eventually the city faced the future, and they decided in 1924 that the canals had to be filled. It wasn't a quick process. The project was debated for 5 years before anything actually happened. And a big part of the hesitation was the sentimentality of the citizens there and the romanticism of the canals. The canals, they were cool.
Yeah, they were cool.
They're cool. I like them.
Yeah, you guys row your boat to work.
People just wanted them to stay. Yeah. The homeowners, they also wanted their property to stay waterfront property rather than just busy roadside property. Mm-hmm. Others just wondered, what was the point of having a city called Venice if there were no canals in it? So the indecision about what to do with the canals, it partly pushed the city into the arms of LA. But even though Kinney had established the canals to be held as public waterways forever when he made them, when Venice became part of LA, the city overturned that somehow and they took the right to fill them in, and the project went forward. The canals were renamed. The Aldebaran became Market Street. Coral Canal became Main Street. Venice Canal is now San Juan Avenue. Lion Canal, Windward Avenue. The Grand Canal became Grand Avenue. They let that one keep its pride. On July 1st, 1929, the first dump truck unloaded a bunch of dirt into the Coral Canal. 100 protesters jumped into the drain canal and they started digging out the dirt, but it didn't help. They buried them alive. By February 1930, all the canals were filled with 90,000 cubic yards of dirt. They were paved with 7 inches of asphalt. The total cost $691,797.84.
Add 84 cents.
It was killer.
They got change back.
And here's 16. Thank you very much. But then why are there still canals today, you might ask?
I was asking
There's
you.
still a few. You're asking me with your eyes.
Yeah.
Stop that. Don't look at me. I told you so many times.
My eyes say canals. But your heart say canals.
Not long after the grand opening of Venice of America and its canal system, the Short Line Beach Company started to build its own smaller canal system just south of the main one. So these were known as the Short Line Canals in what became known as the Venice Canal subdivision, and they linked up with Kinney's Grand Canal. Now, these are the ones that still exist today. They managed to survive because when the city was putting together the assessments to fill the canals, the subdivision area was so small and so barely populated that they wouldn't have supported an assessment.
Right.
And on top of that, the Depression was getting started. It was just warming up. Also, they just didn't need more roads than they were already getting from filling in these other ones.
Right.
So the canals still remained in Venice. Unfortunately, these canals weren't designed as well as Kinney's were, and by the 40s, they were in disrepair. They were made of unreinforced concrete. The sidewalks around them were crumbling. They were abandoned by 1942. The water in them became stagnant. They attracted mosquitoes. They would flood. Sewage was overflowing into them, and at low tide, they smelled of rotting fish.
You're naming all the things I like in life.
The canals were taken out of public use. Nobody could come up with a plan that everyone could agree on for decades. In the 60s, there was a big plan to renovate them, but for some reason, Howard Hughes took offense to it and sued them, and they had to stop. I don't know why. In the late 70s, the houses on the canals were starting to get remodeled, and the empty lots there were being built up into luxury homes, so the prices in that area started to rise, which forced out a lot of the hippies and the artists. In 1982, the canals were put on the National Register of Historic Places, and in 1983, the canals were named a Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument, which bought them more life until 1992, when a $6 million plan to remodel them finally went into effect. The sidewalks were redone, and the canals themselves were beautified. Literally tons of Class 3 contaminated waste were removed from the canals.
Oh, gimme.
The ducks that had been living in the canals were found to be heavily diseased, so a duck genocide ensued, and many were killed, but there were some righteous humans, and they managed to hide some of them and keep them alive.
Never forget.
The canal
Elephant's credo for tragedy.
For everything. The canals were reopened in 1993, and they're now a really nice place to live for ultra-rich people. These canals, they keep on the tradition of the old Venice canals as best as they can while still respecting the people who live there. They have the Linney Canal Downwind Regatta boat race every July 4th weekend, which was a tradition started by the hippies in the 60s. They also have a rubber ducky race, and today they're maintained by the Venice Canals Association, which was established in 1976.